Switching over to the live cam. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. Is it really a happy Friday? I guess it is for some people. It's there we go. I just need to make sure my audio is actually coming through the feed and setting up all of my goodies here so that I can catch any wonderful comments that I get from everybody. Let me switch to that one's not the one I want. What is this? No, you need to go away. How's everybody doing today? Let me just get my windows lined up here so I can get all my chat windows in the right spot. And then that's not the one I wanted. Sorry. For whatever reason, Facebook on Safari this morning was just being ridiculously slow. So I have to pull it up in a different browser. I'm not sure why that is, but I guess it's a thing. Ooh, dusty. All right, so we made it through another week. Most of my days kind of seem like the rest of the days because when you're retired, it's a thing. But that being said, I was busy this week. I was busy yesterday. I was really busy yesterday. If you were here on Friday, or not Friday, if you were here on Wednesday, you saw that I was problem solving an issue with some old bases, and I was actually planning on doing some lacquer spraying on Wednesday, and I totally got sidetracked on fixing this problem, but which we managed to do, and I'll get into that in a minute because that's kind of where we're going to pick up today. But I was totally expecting to spend some time doing some, oh God, my glasses are so glary now. I was spending some time doing some lacquer spraying on the stream last week, or last Wednesday. It did not happen, but yesterday it did. I was a lacquer spraying fiend yesterday. I had the door halfway up, I had the fan blowing out, and I was just spraying bases down. So I think I did a total of maybe five bases yesterday. You got all of those lacquered, and when I spray lacquer, there's usually at least 6 coats of lacquer on there, 5 or 6 coats of lacquer. So it takes a while because you've got between, probably I'm going to clean my glasses. You've got basically about 15 minutes after you spray before you can actually go back and lay down another coat. They say longer, but I found 15 minutes when the weather's right. It's about what you need. It certainly has the lacquer dry to the touch, and because lacquer actually melts into itself, each layer kind of melts into itself, and that provides a nice buildup. But it takes time, so I would go and spray one, then I would move it over and put it on some raised pins to keep it and let it dry, and then I'd put another one down and spray that one. And so I just had a big chain of projects move around. Then you got to keep track of how many coats went on which one and everything else. So it took me pretty much all day to get those 5 done. But now they're in my basement and they're sitting there, and I'm letting the lacquer cure for a little bit. I have to do that because it's still, even though it's dry to the touch, you can handle them. The lacquer is not completely cured, and you can damage the lacquer if you, like if I say set a machine in there to try and take photos of it. I don't want to scratch or mar the lacquer. I want it to harden to its full potential. So I usually let those sit for a few days before I even take photos of them. And I do that. I have a little small tabletop studio in my basement where I have actual studio lights set up and things. And I have a very pretty sewing machine that I use as my model. And so I set that up on the table, and I put the model machine in there, and then I take pictures of each one. I do a series of photographs from different angles and showing the different aspects of it. And like if it has a logo, I do a close-up of the logo, and I show the storage base on the side, or the storage compartment on the side, and the lid and all that good stuff. So I go through and take a whole series of photographs. Once I get the photographs done, then I will list those. Usually I throw them up on my Facebook page for about a week and see if I get any bites there. If I do get purchases there, that's awesome. Otherwise, what I will do is list them on my Etsy shop after that, and then they pretty much don't last very long once they hit the Etsy shop. So it's a good process. I prefer, like, why would you just throw them in the Etsy? Well, Etsy charges me, I don't know, well, 7%, 6%, along with, sales tax and everything else. So, and they don't hold out tax for income tax or anything. So basically, I'm just getting a lot of stuff done. So, and if I sell it on Facebook, then what I will do is, it's the same process for the person buying it. Actually saves them money because I don't charge sales tax. Because you know what? I think that's wrong. I made these. I've already paid taxes on these things. I bought the wood. I paid taxes. Just because I make the wood into a different shape doesn't mean you should get taxed. That's just my thought. I know that's not how things work. Like, the people who make cars already pay taxes on the parts and then they get charged tax when they do it. Actually, taxes are even worse because sales tax, like state sales tax, like if you buy a car, and you buy a car new, that car gets charged, you get charged sales tax on top of that, right? So you've bought it, it's now a used item, the tax has already been paid, but if you turn around and want to sell that used item, they're going to turn around and charge tax on that again. It's like, you taxed this item already, and it's complete. It's not like you're like wood where I'm turning it into a different product. It's the same product. You're double taxing that product. I don't think that should be a thing. I think that, if you're selling a used car, or if you purchase a used car and then you go to the DMV, there should be no tax on that used vehicle purchase. That's my thought. I don't know. You have different thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments, but that's just my thought on taxes. I'm not like an anti-tax person. Taxes make the world work, and I understand that. So I gladly pay my share of taxes. I get it. But I think that sometimes the taxes go a little crazy, and I think that, paying tax on something that's already had the taxes paid on it, to me, is wrong. That's just me. I'm not going to go throw tea into the harbor or anything, but that's just my thoughts on that. But if I buy a new product, I'm okay with paying taxes on it. I mean, that's how we pay for the firemen and the policemen and the roads, and like my road is getting paved. Well, they just don't, pull money out of their own pockets. It has to come from somewhere. So I get it, and I'm okay with that. But circle way back around, I list things on my Facebook page. If they buy it off my Facebook page, I do not charge them sales tax. Now, if the state comes back and says, because see, here's the thing. It's not sales tax where I live. It's sales tax from wherever the person who buys it lives. That's the other crazy thing. Well, you bought something and it came into our state, so we're going to have to tax that item. That's kind of crazy. It used to be that there had to be a physical store in that state where you could have gone and bought it, where then they would collect the sales tax. That's the whole Amazon thing. And as you know now, if you use Amazon charges state tax no matter where you live pretty much. And my state was one of the first ones to go after that. Thanks, Virginia. You're awesome. Anyway, I don't charge tax. Should I? It's a different story. But people can get a little bit of a discount if they buy it there. I don't give them a discount, but they're going to end up paying less. If they go to my Etsy shop, Etsy automatically charges them sales tax. I also charge shipping. I don't do free shipping. Screw that. Pardon my French, but screw that. Free shipping. There's people who try to do free shipping, or that do. And actually, here's a crazy thing. Sorry, Friday morning rant. I'll get to woodworking in just a minute. So Etsy did not used to do this, but now they do. They give priority in their I won't say advertising, but they will highlight makers first who do free shipping. So if you give free shipping, you're going to get probably noticed and put at the top of a search queue above someone who charges for shipping. I don't understand where that logic comes in, and I don't get it. Because honestly, the shipping doesn't. I don't get that, but they do. They give priority. Etsy gives priority to their store owners, and that's what they call them, store owners. They give priority to their shop owners who do free shipping, and I think that's ridiculous. They get their cut out of me whether I sell it and charge shipping or not. So why they give priority to people who give free shipping? I don't know. Because here's the thing: if somebody's searching for a product, they can look and see if the shipping's free or not. They don't need Etsy to put them at the top of the pile. I don't understand why that is. But one day when I'm king, that won't be a thing. Okay. Is that ranting? That's a lot of ranting. I'm about halfway through this cup of coffee, so the ranting gets less as the coffee gets inside. So, anywho, today is, wow, April 30th. Zoom! That month just tore by. This is my 25th episode, so welcome to episode 25. Um, we simulcast this on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you're watching on one of those different platforms and you'd like to switch to another one that you might prefer, if you actually look down below, I'm going to point to my mic. See right down, right down here. See these things right down here? All those things right there are all of my social addresses right there. You can find me there, or if you look in the description of this particular video, live stream, you'll see the different addresses of the places where I stream. So I appreciate your viewership, and if you prefer watching on a different platform and you just came across me here, whatever, you can find those different platforms listed in the description or right at the bottom of the screen right there. So let's get down to things now. All right, so as I said previously, on Wednesday, I had a problem with some bases, and we had to solve that problem, and we did. We as in me, but you were there if you were hanging out with me. You were helping to solve that problem, right? So let me show you what the problem was, what the issue was, what the thing was. So these bases right here, we'll get to this. These bases right here are for a Model 301 machine. And the Model 301 comes in two different sizes. It comes in a short bed and a long bed. I really should bring the long bed up here, but I have one. It's in the basement at the moment. But comes in two different sizes. The main part of the machine from here to here is exactly the same. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes is this little part right here. See this little bed right here? Kind of flips up. This is the 301, and that is the flip-up bed. So the flip-up bed comes in two sizes. It comes in a short bed and a long bed. I think the long beds are more coveted. But when I created this base, I wanted something that would accommodate both size machines. And to do that, I had to come up with a way for it to sit inside of this base right here, because I didn't want to use corner supports. The general way that this base works, I could have, but I found it really nice that if it just sets down inside of this base, it then kind of becomes the base becomes part of the whole system. It's kind of weird, but anyway, when that happened, I was like, cool. So I made another one. I made a prototype, and everything was hunky dory. Then I went to go make these other ones, and I went to go put the machines in, and they wouldn't fit. It was just because what I do is I make a rabbet, not the fuzzy kind, but the kind that cuts a ledge. Let me go over here. My camera on here. So if you see this ledge right here that runs all the way around the inside of the base right here, that is a rabbet. Okay, it's a ledge. It's there you go. It's like that. And this machine sits inside of that rabbet, so it sits on the walls of the base, and that's what supports the machine, is that rabbet that runs all the way around. When I did the original prototype machine or prototype base, which is now, I actually lacquered that and it's in the basement now. But when I did that original one and I got all the measurements and everything was great, and I said, you know, let me make some measurements here. So I've got all my measurements so I could do some repeating stuff there. So there's my measurements for that. But for whatever reason, I think it was the thickness of the wood, because I was doing outside measurements and my prototype base was, the wood was a little thinner than these. So these are 3/4 of an inch thick, which is what I normally do. Anyway, for whatever reason, these ended up not having the width that I needed. So I had to get out my rabbiting bit that I used to cut this with, and it's an Amana Tools bit. And luckily, that bit has different sized spacers to create different width rabbets. And it's just a bearing, and the bearings come in different sizes. And so I changed the bearing size to make it, I think it was a 1/16 of an inch bigger, which gave me an 1/8 of an inch total increase in size. And what that allowed me to do was to take this and actually set it inside the base like this. And there it is. Now, you'll notice that there's a big space here in the front. So this is kind of one of the things we're going to address today. That is because if I had the long bed machine up here, the bed is longer. So this is actually cut to accommodate that long bed. And you can see that this tips up. That's why there's, I don't know if you saw that, there's little notches right here. See this little notch right there? If you can see it on the side. I actually cut those on the CNC machine so that they're perfectly done. But those notches allow this bed to tip up. The bed needs to tip because people will need to get under here to change their little spool, their bobbin, and put thread in there, and then they can close it back. The short bed is short, but I didn't want to have to make 2 different size bases. I'm like, well, that's kind of, I mean, it's convenient, I guess, for someone who just has one machine, but it's also inconvenient for me to have to then come up with all of the different sizing for different size machines. So what I decided to do was make this size, which if I had a long bed up here, it would extend to the full length of this base right here. And that base then gets, it covers it up, so they don't need anything. But if you have a short bed, I know I'm rambling. If you have a short bed, what I do is I put a little lid right here. I just make a little cover for this, and then you've got a bed extension. So even if you have a short bed, it now kind of makes it like a long bed, and that's kind of nice. So to do that, what I have to do is cut out a piece that looks like this to fit in there. And I could do these by hand, but I choose not to because I have a CNC machine, and CNCs are much more fun. And they make better work of this. Now this one, not quite fitting. And actually, if I stick it down on this side, you'll be able to see, there you go. See how it kind of sticks out right here? So this was my first cut. That's why it has a letter A on there. This was the A. This was the first one I did. I was like, oh man, the width is fine. I mean, it fits in the, from here to here, it's 7 inches, which is fine. But the length was just a little too long. I mean, and by a little, I mean like 1/10 of an inch too long. Too long or too wide, or however you want to phrase it, it no fit. So I went back to the CNC machine. I altered just the width. I kept the length and changed the width by 1/10 of an inch. And when I did that, I cut another sample out. Now this is just plywood. This is not going to be the, I mean, it looks nice, but it's not the finished product. So now I put this in here, boom, it fits perfect. And you can see how this is nice because it leaves a full, kind of like there's a nice full bed extension right here. So if you're sewing, you would have the machine turn the other way. But if you were sewing, you've got room for your fabric here to run through, and it's kind of nice. These are very popular machines. For the longest time, I would get people going, oh, do you make anything for a 301? Because really people don't make a 301 base. There's one person who does, and theirs is really, I won't say overcomplicated, but they came up with some way that you can lift this up and slide some doohickey in here and it will lock it into the base, and then you can pick it up by the handle here and the whole thing with the base. That was more work than I wanted to think about doing, and I guess I could have done that, but I just wanted a simple base, and most people just want a simple base. I made these very decorative ones. They have the dovetails on them, and they are contrasting wood. So as you can see, let me move the laptop out of the way here for a minute. So as you can see, they have dovetails, and this is all maple, and this is walnut. It's a beautiful combination, in my opinion. I love that. I love contrasting woods for things like finger joints and dovetails, and anything like if I'm doing decorative splines, which are a refresher. These little strips in the corner are splines, and they are decorative and also functional for this box. But they are made of maple, and this is walnut. So I'm just a big fan of that. I think it looks really great. So that's kind of the look I go for when I do something like that. And I was like, okay, well, when I come up to the top here, am I going to make these tops out of walnut or out of maple? Well, part of that has to do with what wood I have on hand. Do I have enough walnut to do this? It doesn't take a lot. This piece of wood is not ending up being very large. I think it's 3¼ inches, maybe 3¼ inches wide, probably a little less than that, by 7 inches wide. It's not huge, but it's also thin. I don't want to cut this too thick. What I need for a lip is actually, or for a lid, is thinner than this. This is like 0.21 inches. It's less than 1/4 inch. I need even thinner than that to fit on here. So like I said, I had to figure out all these little things. This needs to be cleaned out right there. I need to clean this one out. That aside, so I'm like, okay, well, what do I have? Well, I found this in my little scrap pile here, which was I don't know if you can see that or not. I don't want to, it's a little glary, but you can see it like has a guitar, half a guitar on here. It's like, well, there's a guitar body printed on here. That's because this was going to be when I originally sawned this, I was going to use this as a maple cap on a guitar. I ended up doing it again because I went a little thin on this and I wanted something a little thicker. So when I did the resaw on the next piece, it was a little thicker. But I still have this piece left over. And as you can see here, I don't know if you can see, it's a little curvy right there. It's got a little bit of a bow in it, which happens quite often when you resaw wood. It has to do with the pressures and the grain direction and everything else. And when you resaw, it releases pressures and then things dry and move. And so a lot of times you can get bowing in or cupping or whatever you want to call it, depending on which way the wood's facing. But it's a really pretty piece of maple. I think, and my plan is to cut a strip maybe right out of the middle, which, by the way, this is 22 inches long, I think. 21½ inches long. So this should give me, if I space them correctly, I should get three pieces of wood out of here to make these lids. So I will make them out of maple. So my plan is to, if I cut a strip out of the middle of this, right, instead of leaving it at its full curvy width here, if I cut a strip out, well, then there's less curve from one side to the other. The curve is more dramatic from here to here than it is from, say, here to here. So if I cut this strip out of the middle, then I put it on the jointer and flatten it a little bit, then I can set this on my CNC machine, cut out the lid, and yeah, once I cut the lid out, I can then put it on here, and then I will flatten it with a hand plane to get it the size I need. So that's the game plan. So we're gonna cut some lids. Now the cutting of the lid doesn't take very long. It'll actually take me longer to mill this down to get the middle piece to make it flat. But we're gonna get that section taken out of the middle. We will flatten it over on the jointer over there, because I have my jointer over there. So we'll flatten it out on the jointer and get one flat side. And then what I would do is get a backer board. I don't like to put things directly on my wasteboard, because what happens is, so here's the cutout from one of these. And what happens is I cut it so that the depth is just a little deeper than the thickness of the wood. And my CNC machine is very exacting, but I do not want to cut just a little deeper and then put this pattern on my wasteboard on my CNC machine. So normally what I would do is I'll mount that to a piece of flat wood, like a piece of plywood. I will use double stick tape, mount it onto there, and then allow the bit to cut it out. We'll pop it off the double stick tape and then clean up the edges. So that's kind of the way I like to do that. But I'm very excited about this. I did all this testing yesterday. That was the other thing I did yesterday was I had the lid that I had made from the prototype. I traced that on a piece of paper. I took it into Photoshop. I made a black and white template. I converted that to what's called an SVG file, which is a scalable vector graphics drawing. I guess it's SVG, right? This uses scalable vectors. So if you use like something like a picture, like a JPEG or whatever, which you're used to seeing a picture of, well, pictures are raster images. And if you scale one up, like if you ever zoomed in and then it looks all jagged edges, vector images don't do that. You can scale them infinitely large or small, and they maintain their smooth edges. So that's why CNC machines like that stuff. That was a lot of information, wasn't it? Blah, 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 blah. So much stuff, so much talking. Let's do some woodworking. All right, so first order of business. Oh, and the other thing these these spaces need, which I did the other day on the stream, was I cut the bottoms right here. So there's another rabbet. I use a different bit than the one for the top, but this rabbet bit right here makes a rabbet all the way around the interior. And then I will be cutting some pieces of plywood. I use like a 1/4 inch birch ply for the bottoms. I mean, they look okay, and it's the bottom. You don't see the bottom, so that's why I use plywood. But anyway, I will be doing that, and we can cut those out and put those in as well, and then get those glued in. But for now, let's go ahead and start with getting, let's get this maple cut and see if we can get it flattened so that I can stick it to a piece of sacrificial wood, like a piece of plywood or something, a little sacrificial piece of plywood, and then we will we'll cut that out on the CNC, because I have it pulled up sort of on the CNC behind me, and we'll try to make that happen too. We also need to drink this coffee before it gets cold, because that's one of the sad things in life, is when your coffee that's nice and warm goes cold. That's sadness in a cup, unless you like iced coffee. But anyway, I guess if it's intended to be iced coffee, it's different. But when it's your hot coffee and it gets cold, it just isn't the same. All right, but that's done. So good on you. We're ready to roll. All right, I'm going to put this out of the way for the moment, because I don't want to trip over it and knock it or do anything with it. We're going to set that down for the moment. Let me move my little stool over here, and we will set this over here. So I think the first thing we need to do is cut this panel right here. We're going to cut this down to size. Like I said, we need to keep a piece in here that is basically from here to here, and I measured that, and it is, if we go I need at least 4 inches. We'll call it 4 inches. So I need a piece that's at least 4 inches out of the middle of this thing. This thing is 7¼ inches. So if I take off like 2 inches off this side, I'm just doing some preliminary measuring here, and then I go to 4. That leaves me about 1¼ inch off that one. So let me do 1.5 inches. Let's try 1.5 inches off this side, see what that looks like. Or 1.75 inches. Let's try 1.75 inches. I think that'll look good. 1.75 inches, we're going to go 4 inches. And that, yeah, so that's pretty close. Okay. I think that gets us close enough to pulling a strip out of this thing that will be usable. The other thing is if I look at the edge and see if there's a side that looks flatter, like this has more prominent curve right here than this does. This is actually a little flatter. So the other thing I could do is I could actually just take my 4 inches off of one edge, and that might actually flatten up a little better. You know, the more I look at this, the more I'm inclined to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this edge on the jointer first to get a flat edge. I'm just going to run it through really quickly in the jointer, get a flat edge, and that allows me to get a nice edge to take it through the table saw. Let's see what we've got. Number 2 is looking at the jointer with projects sitting on top of it. So let's clean that up. My lovely utensil, this is just drying over here. It's kind of keeps moving around. It's completed, but it needs to dry. So we're just letting it dry. I'm just going to move some stuff around here, uncover the jointer, and then we're just going to run this through. Now I need to figure out which way do I want this jointer. Is going to come through this way. Yeah. I always like to get my jointer direction. So that's almost flat on there. So that actually probably wouldn't be too hard to flatten out. All right, let's just run this through real quick. I'm just getting a flat edge is all I want. Okay, it was not completely flat before because as I was running it through, there were parts where I did not hear the blade impacting the wood. So when I hear that cutting noise as I take it through the entire length, I know that it's now been flattened. So now we can take this and we can move over to the table saw. So boop, let's change views, and I'm going to move some stuff out of the way. And we can set this up to cut over here. Now I have to rearrange a couple things. Hang on, I have to grab my power, and I need to grab my hose, and I need to unhook the hose from the CNC machine because it was still attached to the CNC, which is where I was doing my testing yesterday. So hose is now ready to be hooked up to the table saw. So let's get that in here. It's just one of those things I have to deal with, you know. Oh, get in there. There we go. And we need power at the table saw. So power is plugged in. Now we can set the depth of cut over here. Now, here's the thing. Because this is cupped like this, right? So it's kind of going like this. I do not want that to be in the air. I want to have it like this. And the reason being, now you can see, you can see how it rocks. But the reason is that as I'm cutting, if it's this way, right, with the cup down, which you're like, well, that's more stable. It is, but the problem is, as I cut, this will tip in on itself as that cut gets done. If it tips in on itself, it will impact the blade, and then I'll get this crazy kick. If I have it this way, and I run this side through like this, as this cut finishes, this side will just fall away from the saw. And so that's why you want to make sure if you're cutting wood that has a cup or a bow in it like this, you want to make sure that You do it with the smiley face, not a frowny face, okay? That's the easy way to put it. Smiles, not frowns. Because if you do it with the frowns, you will have frowns, I guarantee. All right, I'm gonna raise this up just a little bit more. We're gonna set this to, I'm gonna go 4.5 inches here. That gives me lots of width to work with. It's right here. And I'm just gonna cut this, I'm just gonna run this through. In fact, let me get this set up here so I can hold it. And it should be high enough for that won't. Yeah, so here we go. So I'm gonna have this run through. I'm gonna keep this edge pushed down and tight to the fence. So when I run it through, it'll be like this. You can see this is up in the air, but that's okay. It'll get cut. And then as we finish the cut, we'll have a piece on the edge that's not quite as bowed out as that is. I have to get my ears here and I need my little remote. All right, let's go ahead and cut this. I think we're good. 4.5 inches. Let's get a cut on this and just get moving. I'm gonna move it back, turn this on. And hopefully you saw when that cut finished, this just fell down. If that was the other direction, it would have kicked in. And that's the difference. I wanted it to rock away from the blade, not tip into the blade. All right, so here's our piece. It's still a little, because I went a little wide, so it's got a little bit of a roundness to it there still. But we're going to take this back over to the jointer now, and we're gonna plane this edge, this edge, to get rid of that little bit of cupping that we have in there now. And I don't know, let me look here. It's not too bad. I mean, there's like maybe, I don't know, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Now, you can see I already have some ink on here, but I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna just kind of draw on here. And that's gonna show me when this area of ink in the middle is gone, then I know that we are probably in a good spot there, probably flat. Now the key here also is you don't want to push, like I use push pads, right? So these are my push pads, but you don't want to like put like extra pressure on them because yeah, it'll flatten the wood out, but then as soon as you like let pressure off, boop, it pops back up. So I'm just going to use those pads lightly to pass this through here, and hopefully, if I can get it going in the correct direction. Anyway, we'll see. But I'm going to lightly pass this through here so that least amount of pressure, because I just want to work that off the edges of the machine here, or off the board. So just the edges coming, and then we will work it flat from the edges to the middle. And if I put pressure, it's going to basically give me a not accurate cut. So let's do this. Here's this like so we're almost done now. It's just a little bit left right now. Okay, so we've got rid of all the ink on here, and I'm going to come back to my table over here, and I'm just going to put this on my tabletop, and I just want to see. Now, still full rocking on this side because this side didn't get touched, but this side did, and it's got some bowing this way a little bit, but that being said, it's pretty flat. Pretty flat. Turn around this, look at this end. This end's pretty flat too. I've got a couple of different difficult edges in here where I'm just getting some chip out kind of areas right in here. It's really hard. Maples are troublesome wood sometimes. But I think I've got enough depth here. See, that's the other thing too, is I need enough depth that, see, like right here, this is the edge. You can't see that because I'm over here. So right here, I'm right at the edge of thickness. I'll bring this in here. And I'm gonna have to clean these edges out just a little bit in here because I had to do a couple of different passes. And so I've got just a little variance in here, but that's okay. I can still check. And right here, it's really close. Now I'm gonna take this section out of the middle so it'll be just a tiny bit taller too. This, remember, I'm not cutting it, these lids out of the edge, I'm cutting them out of the middle. So let's see what we can get here. This, like I said, I might have to do this all over again, and so this might be for naught. But flat on the bottom, and we'll just see how this works. Now, I need to put this on the CNC machine. I might cut these into some different sections so that I'm not using the entire width here, because I do have some limitations on the width of my process here. And I don't want to overextend out. Let me pull up. So I don't know if I can see there. Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm just using my computer keypad. I have a keypad down here. It's a little, actually it's wireless. So there you go, see? And that's how I control, the computer is actually mounted to the back of the monitor here, which is really nice. Because I used to have a laptop, which is why I had this little drawer right here. It used to slide out and allow me to use the laptop. I'll use it as a table right now. But that's just where I store this. And it's nice because it has a touchpad, so I don't need a mouse or anything. But what I do need is to open up my easel software, which I already have pulled up here. And we're going to pull up the project that I made yesterday. So this is the project right here. There it is. So that is the project. Now, I'll tell you what, let me give you a little bit better view here. I'm going to go readjust a camera angle for you, and then we'll switch to that camera because I can get a zoom in easier if I use this camera over here. And I can probably zoom this in a little bit. Let me actually, you don't need to see the keyboard. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. There we go. That might be a little bit nicer for you. All right, let me get you on that camera. There we go. So now you've got a little bit more of a close-up on the CNC machine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm basically going to open up the controls for the machine that allow me to move this whole stanchion thing back and forth. And so I'm going to just set that, and then we can just move it out of the way. That's how that works. I'm just using the keyboard keys to make it go back and forth. Don't go too far. I'm going to take the dust boot off for the moment. I'll set it down here. And so right now I've got a wasteboard. This is the wasteboard right here. This is a sacrificial piece of plywood that I had down on this thing. Now I'm thinking what I might do is cut these, instead of having them all the way across, I might cut my longboard here into some smaller pieces, and then I can, it'll be a little bit more easy and to manage. So I might need to cut this down to a slightly longer than 7-inch piece. The issue with doing that is I might lose, because remember, this was only 21.5 inches. I think that's what we said. I think this was 21.5 inches. And yeah, a little over 21.5. So if I cut this, I'm going to 1, 2, 3/8. So I'll lose 3/8 of an inch. So that leaves me just 1/4 of an inch of play. Yeesh. Or if I do this on my bandsaw, I can actually get a smaller kerf. Perhaps I will do that. This is all experimentation right now, you know, is what it is. I'm going to go back to this view for the moment. I need to get a ruler out to measure 7 inches from my kerf here. So I'm going to come over here to this. I'm measuring 7 inches to set up my fence. Now I need more than 7 inches actually. These are 7 inches wide. Yeah, see, this is, I'm having thoughts now. I was like, oh, I can just cut these one after the other, but I'm having some doubts now. I'm sorry, folks. This is live TV. This is what I do. I just kind of just go off on tangents. Let me dig in my pile here for a second. You can't see me in my pile, but I've got a wood pile here on the floor, and I actually have some larger boards here. And I have some up here. I actually have some tiger maple up here. It's really thick. I don't know if it's wide enough. See, this one's not wide enough. That one is plenty wide. All right. Sorry, there's boards underneath here. Get off it. Whoa. Whoa, okay. Things just falling off the wood here, work here. Hang on. Let me get this set up so it doesn't crash into my skull. There we go, because that's a piece of Coca-Bolo up there, and if it hit me in the head, I would definitely know it. All right. Coming back over to you. So what I have here is a piece of flamey maple, and you can see there's actually, I don't know if you can see or not, but there's a guitar neck drawn on here because I was like, well, I can get some really nice, there's some nice flame in here, and I can have a nice flame maple guitar neck. So I don't want to ruin that, but I do have a big piece up here that I can use. And this is also flamey. And what I could do with this, all right, let's think about this for a moment. So what I could do, I mean, that little piece is fine, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be too much of a close, narrow. By the time I get those 7-inch pieces cut out, it doesn't give me any fat around the edges, and I don't like that. So if I take this piece right here, well, here's my piece right here, right? So I can easily get a couple of pieces out of this. Let me grab this. So I need a piece that's right there. So I'm going to mark a line just so I can see how much this needs to be. Actually, make this longer because I can. This is one of those tools that everybody should have in their shop. Okay, so this line right here that I just drew, you can see the line I just drew right here, and that fits a lid on this side, and then it fits a lid on this side. Now it's very thin right there. If this board was wider, I could do it this way, but the other thing I could do is let me draw this out on here, because this is also something I could do. Just kind of spitballing ideas here. It's kind of how we roll. Just trying to think of the most logical way to do this. And by the way, if you are watching and you have suggestions, I am always open. Now, if I take this board and I flip this piece like this to cut one, now I actually have more board to use, because these little feet, these little pointy parts on the edge, are not interfering with anything. So I'm just spitballing ideas here. Now this is a very thick piece of wood, so I'll have to resaw this on the bandsaw as well. But, okay, how about that? What do you think? Does that work? See if I can give it to you on another camera. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking of right here. So I've got a piece here and a piece here, and then I could do one more on here as well. But that allows me to get these lids out of here. And like I said, this is actually, depending on how I cut this, well, I don't want to resaw this right now. If I resaw the wood first, it'll be less cutting, and that's probably what I need to do. So what I'm going to do is cut this board off. I'm going to take it over to the saw over here. I'm going to take it over to that saw. We're going to cut off a piece right here, and then I'll take it over to, I will joint it flat on the edge. We will take it over to the bandsaw. We will resaw this in half. This is a thick piece of wood. This is probably 7/8. Well, it's not, but it is a little over, so what is that, 8, 12, 13 sixteenths. So it's over 3/4 of an inch. If I saw this in half, half of that would be about, you know, I don't know, 3/8. 3/8 is way thicker than I need. So, whoop, change of plans. Get rid of that skinny piece of wood with all the stuff on there. Is what it is. Sorry, piece of wood, but you're done. You're out. We've gone in a different direction. Now, that also allows me to then use this piece of wood to get, if I can cut it, if I can saw this in half this way on the bandsaw, that allows me to then have space for 4 of these, not 3. So let's do that. So I'm going to take this over here, and we will cut this off. Now I'm going to give myself a little bit of room here when I cut this. So I'm going to give it a little bit of extra room, so I have some space there. There we go, about like that. I want to leave this piece here. I'd like to use this this extra length where I already have the guitar neck drawn on there. I'd like to make a guitar neck out of this, so I don't want to ruin this whole piece of wood. But this piece right here, I think if I go a little bit longer, just to give myself some wiggle room there. Okay, let me get the necessary items for cutting this. So I need my power cord, and I'm going to need some dust. Little dust protection because this is, well, this is really bad because I'm running my computer, which sucks air in, and the only air that's going to be sucking in this place is going to be dusty air at a moment. So let me put all this stuff away for the moment. And let's get my ears here and my remote. Okay, we're going to hook up the dust collection. And let's cut a piece of wood off of this, shall we? All right, here we go. I was just gonna cut this, but then I figured, you know what? Because this is larger, it might tip back when I'm done. So this just holding it in place. All right, now we can do it. I do love this saw. All righty. Now what I want to do is make one flat edge. I think this is pretty, looking at the surface here, this is pretty flat across here. There's no cupping or anything. I'm just checking this across the surface. I don't see any cupping on there. So this is nice and flat. So I'm going to take this flat edge, I'm going to put it against the fence on my jointer, and then we will square up one edge, make it 90 degrees so that when I go to resaw this, it'll look better. So I'm going to take my my pin here, and I'm just going to, I like to do that. And that lets me know that I'm getting all of the wood cut. So you can see I just did the, there we go, did the squiggly line. I'll take this, constantly moving things around. And then I'm just gonna keep this flat against the fence right here, keep this surface against the fence, and then we are just going to run a nice straight edge across here. So it didn't actually take long to do that, but what happened was that ink pen actually soaked into the wood a little bit deeper, and so it took me a few extra passes just to get rid of the inked section. But now this is flat, and this is 90 degrees flat to it. So when I set this on the fence to run it through the bandsaw, I can keep this very vertical. Now, the other thing I might do is just, let me draw on here and so I know where my flat side is. So flat side, and then this is my side I just did. I'm gonna square this up just so that I can scrawl a line on here. This is very rough cut. I don't know if you can see that on there. This is very rough cut on the top here. And so, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Here, watch this. This will be movie magic because you get to actually see all this. I'm gonna go into my menu here, and I'm gonna lower the brightness on here because I had this set up for doing there we go. Is that a little better? That's better. Okay. Done. I just lowered the brightness a little bit because I had it pointed at a very dark area of my garage the other day, and I was like, I need to be brightened up. There we go. So you can see this is actually really rough cut. So I want to use my marking gauge to draw a line down the middle of this, which I will use as I draw this line down there. I'll use that as a guide when I'm resawing. So I'm not trying to get this flat and square. I'm just trying to get it cleaned up, get the rough saw marks off of there. So let's go ahead and try that. There we go. So you can see now that that's much cleaner. I mean, there's still a little bit rough here, but that's okay because, like I said, I'm going to use that for my marking gauge. And I just want it to be smoother because when I go to do this on the saw, I'll have this side right here against the fence. This will be on the base as I run it through. And I just need a line for me to follow up top here, just kind of help guide it through. So to do that, we're going to get the marking gauge. And I want my little Craig. Did I put that away? I might have. I did. Right here. So I need to measure how wide this is. And actually, you know what? Let's get, is it in here? It's in here. Let's be precise, shall we? That'll be fun. We'll be precise. So let's take a measurement of how thick this is here. So this is 0.8535 inches here. 855. It's pretty squared up dimensionally. So if we say 8.5, so that would give us 4.25 is the depth that we want to take this to. 4.25. This is why having one of these is so great because it also has the depth mark here, which I can use that to set up my, I set my depth of my marking gauge. That should be correct. Let's see here. Almost. There we go. That should be correct. And I'm just going to make a test line on here and then just remeasure it. So let's see. Yep. Okay. So now I've got my measurement correct on here. I will use my flat side of the wood to run against this. Is this any better for you? Yeah. So I'm going to use the flat side. I'm going to run that against the edge of the marking gauge right here. You can see the marking gauge is extended out to our new measurement. And I'm just going to put this flat against that board and then just drag it across. Ouch. Just like that. Now I'm not looking to, you know, run this thing so deep here as much as I am just make a nice defined line. So there is a line on there. It might be hard for you to see, but then I will take a pencil lead and put it in that little line that it just made. Whoop, maybe. There we go. Well, my pencil lead is not as sharp as I thought it would be. Should be sharper than that. Should be riding right in that line there. There we go. Okay. And that pencil line is just going to guide me, but there you go. So that is it divided. You can see. Now that's divided in half. And then we can take that and set that on the saw over here. Now, do I have a saw set up over here? Probably not. Let me move the dust collector out of the way for a moment. Kind of just collecting things at the moment here. Things are getting, this kind of happens when I work like this. Things just start getting out of whack. It's like I have stuff all set up the way I think I'm going to work, and then it's like, nope, change directions. So let me get things set up here. And I'm going to put a camera view on there for you just so you can see, because that'll make it a little bit better for you. So I'm going to zoom into this. There we go. Maybe out just a little bit. There we go. All right. So now you have a camera view to watch. I'll switch you to it. There we go. There's the bandsaw with my lovely pink. You like that? Oh, it's not plugged in. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I need to raise the guide to just above the height of my board, which I have right here. So there's my board. I need to raise this guide. Let me loosen it and raise the guide. Now hopefully, there we go. This is almost to my full capacity here, which is why I want a new saw, because I don't have a lot of resaw capacity in here. So I'm really right at the edge here. But what I want to do is pass this just so that it's just above the edge of the wood there, because that puts these guides, these little guide bearings, closer to the wood. And the closer they are to the wood, the straighter my cut's going to be. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fence on here. So this is a mag fence, and it has these little magnets that you just twist, and they lock into place on the bottom of the table. So when I do like this, and it locks it down, so that is, it won't move. It's locked in. So what I'm going to do is establish, this is a little tricky, but I establish my line here of how far this is. So right here, and then I'm going to push that fence forward. Now this is not the whole process, this is just me starting the process. So the teeth are lined up with my marking gauge line, the teeth of the saw blade. I push my table or my fence into that, and then I'm going to pull this away, and I'm going to measure this right at the point where it's near the saw. So you'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to take this T-square right here, and I just loosen the nut. Kind of rest, there's a slot here that you can use for a putting attachments on here and such. But I'm going to use this to measure where that fence is. Okay, and then I'm going to lock this up. So I know that my depth now, when I have this in the slot right here, is exactly gonna, you'll see, watch. This is all loose now. I'm gonna push this one in, I'm gonna tighten it up. If I can. So twist, that one's tight. I'm gonna take this one over here, and I'm gonna have it touch that ruler, tighten it up. So now this fence is equally distant all the way across from that distance right here. So this should be perfect. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I just want to have this square. And so as I'm running this through, I will keep it pushed against there. Now, that moved a little bit. So I have to, and I usually end up having to do this a couple times. This is my square side. Why is it doing that? All right, so I need to move it in actually a little bit, because I think my magnet was not set when I did this the first time, and it moved just a hair. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to loosen this, and we're just going to touch the fence. Lock this down. All right, now I can readjust these again. So I'm going to loosen this one. Now here's the thing I found with resawing. What's most important is that mark you make on your wood, because unless you have like the super best bandsaw in the world, you're going to get a little drifting. I like to control the drifting by hand. And by drifting, I mean that the blade wants to wander just a little bit. The blade wants to push this way, and it'll push this way. The guides help a lot, but you can still get a little drifting out of that. So I like to, that's better right there. Okay. I think we're in good shape here. I'm just moving some scrap wood out of the way for the moment. I think we're in good shape. I've got my dust collection up here. We've got this here, so when I push through, it still seems like I'm off just a hair. And I don't like that. I want to be as close to that as I can be, but then again, my fence seems like it wants to, it's like my fence is tipped a little bit here. Let me check something here. Because this is also very important, is that your fence, yeah, see my fence is actually tipped back. It is tipped back. Not much, but it's tipped back just a little bit. And part of the reason is I actually have some tape on here because I found it was tipping. I'm going to take a layer of tape off of here and see if that fixes that a little bit. Because this should be straight up and, excuse me, straight up and down. So when I tighten this down, it should be, okay, that's much better. Much better. I have to do this whole setup thing again, but that's much better. All right, here we go again. Put this flat against there. Put that, so I want this right there. Against the fence. Run it against the fence. Right there. That's my measurement. I'm going to lock this one in for a moment. Loosen this. I know this is a lot of work, but when you're resawing, you kind of want to be as accurate as you can so that you have less work on the backside. So I'm going to move this one in. Probably need to move this one out a little bit. Make sure this one's good. And then I'll check it again. All right, I think we're ready now. So I'm going to grab my ears. We're going to turn on the vacuum. We'll turn on the machine here and we will make a cut. Let's go. And voila, we have two. All right. So for anybody watching, measure twice, cut once. Seagoat Forge, you are so right. I measure about 10 times before I make the cut, just because paranoia takes over from me. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. And also, just so people know, this is what everybody that you watch on YouTube for tutorials and everything else, they go through all of this same stuff and struggles and redoing and everything else. You just don't see it because they cut and they edit and they get it down to the parts that look pretty. This is what the ugliness looks like behind the scene. So that's pretty much. But now that I got a little drifting here at the end, but that's okay, because I've got two very good pieces. They're almost equally thick, pretty close to that. Let's see how close I came from my measurement here with the calipers, and whoo, that is exact. Actually, that's pretty dang good. I am not unhappy with that. All right. And then, like I said, this is going to get thickness down when we make these lids right here. It's going to get, we're going to thickness this down a little bit. But, and this is really, I wish I could show you how pretty this wood is. It is super pretty. It's got flaminess going through this way. It's got some really nice grain in here. Lots of figure and such in here. So this is really pretty wood. Yeah. Which is why I kind of had that piece reserved to doing some guitar necks, because it's really pretty. Now, the issue with this is that because it's so pretty, and I don't know if you can see, there's like chatoyance and stuff going on in there. But because it's so pretty, that means the grain is actually undulating in here. There are ripples in this wood grain. And I will tell you right now, that is a pain in the butt to deal with. You need super sharp tools and a lot of sanding to make that stuff look nice, because it's just the way that the wood is, as it's growing, it's being compressed. That's what does that. It's hard to explain. Go look up flame maple and how it actually occurs in the wood. It's a thing. It has to do with the growing seasons and all kinds of stuff. But I can tell you as a woodworker, it's beautiful, but it's a pain in the butt to work with. So, now I've got that, we can move forward. I don't know, this is pretty flat right here. So I could actually mount this onto a backer board, and we can actually do a cut of the lid on the CNC machine. So let me find a backer board. Let me measure how big this thing is right here. This is, I can't find my ruler now. There it is. Oh, sorry. So this is 10 by 6 5/8, which means I need a piece of plywood that will accommodate that. So hang on just one second. I'm going to go off camera and find a nice board that we can use as a backer board, just a piece of plywood that we can use as a backer board that will accommodate that. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. So this is just a nice piece of there you go. Nice piece of 1/4 inch ply. And what I'll do is double side tape this to here. And then I use my hold downs on the CNC machine. And that way I don't have to worry about hold downs getting in the way of the actual router coming in and doing the cut. So that's pretty good. All right. Let me do that. So if I'm going to cut one out of here, and I want to maximize this surface here, so I think I would do one right here in the corner, maybe 1/4 inch away. And then what I would do is, yes, I'm going to run some double-sided tape across here, here, and here. So let me get the tape on here. I use this stuff right here. It's called Intertape Polymer Group is who it came from. If you go to facebook.com/Intertape, it's IPG is the name of the company. This stuff is fantastic. I'm going to get a pair of scissors. That stuff, it's my favorite double-sided tape. It feels just like, masking tape when you're rolling it out. But that's because it's super thin. When you get it cut down, it is really thin. So I'm going to put a piece right here. And this is all paper backing right here, but it's super thin. I mean, it's really nice. Put a piece up top. My goal is to try to keep the, to minimize, actually I could put a piece right in the middle here. I'm going to cut right here. That will be inside of the lid because it'll be right about here. So I can keep that inside, then I can put another piece on the outside of it. So I'm trying to lessen the impact of my router bit hitting the tape because it gums up the router bit. So if I keep the tape on the inside here, I should be in good shape. I can put a couple other little pieces on here. I mean, I don't really need a lot, but I do want it to be secure and hold tight. So I'm just gonna put a couple little pieces. I'm gonna put this piece right here, and I'm gonna put a piece right over here. And then when I flip this board is going to flip over, and I will do that first cut on this corner, and that way I know that I won't be impacting the tape. So then from here, what I'm going to do is get my marking knife right here, and I just peel the paper backing off. So if I take my finger and just really kind of make sure these are pushed down, and then I can just take the marking knife and catch an edge, and pull the paper backing off. And like I said, this stuff is super thin, which is really nice because it holds very flat against your backer material, whatever that is. I use this stuff for doing pattern routing. Like if I'm making a guitar or something and I've got a pattern, I always use this stuff on the template. So if I'm definitely routing a template, I will use this stuff because it just does such a fantastic job and it keeps the wood super close to that template. I have thicker tape that I've used, but this stuff I'm just a fan. Okay, I'm going to flip it this way. And then I'm trying to keep this square to the bottom of the board. In fact, hang on a second. Let me use my handy dandy little Craig tool here and set up just a distance here that I can keep this edges before I actually set this down in here. So we'll mark this one right here because I want to keep it square so when I make my cut, there we go. All right, and then we just put pressure on here like this. And this thing is securely mounted on there. It's not going anywhere. Now I can use hold downs on my wasteboard and hold this down because this is nice and this is super flat. So I can hold this down and I don't have to worry about it impacting this. All right, let's go back to the CNC camera right there. And now we're at the CNC machine over here. I have to move my hold downs to probably new locations. My wasteboard gets really crowded on here sometimes. It is any flat surface in my shop is a collector of things. It just happens. I don't mean for it to happen. It just does. Just does. It's like people don't like having drawers because they know they just get filled up with crap. So I was going to say, which side was the good side? It's 2.5 inches. So I know that this is the edge right over here that I want to make my cut. I'm going to put this board on here, and then there's a grid on here, so I can actually use the grid to get this square and make sure I have enough room for my little hold downs. So that looks good. All right, so I'm going to put one of these here, and then one of these over here. Maybe I can actually do this one down here on the corner. And I have a little T-wrench, which makes this a lot faster to do. It's just an Allen, but because these have little Allen wrench holes in the top, and then I need to do the one up top here. So find a couple of other places to hold down. Right here is perfect. So I'm basically just putting putting these little hold downs in. I'm screwing them in, and then they will apply pressure downward onto this plywood and keep it from shifting. And that in turn holds it in place because this is attached to the plywood. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, it's a pretty good system there. Pretty good system. I have other hold downs as much. Crap. The only problem I have is the threaded inserts for these things. I don't know what they're made out of, but man, they just, they break all the time. I actually need to go and replace about half of them because they just have a tendency to break. Okay, this is now secure. I probably should put one in the middle. Actually would not be a bad idea if I put one in the middle there. I need to find a long tooth or move the whole thing down just a little bit. I think I'm going to move the whole thing down just a little bit though. I'm going to loosen all of these, move it down just a little bit. Let me find another long hold down. Short ones, much shorter ones. I hope I have some really long ones in here. Very short ones. All right, well, those may be the longest ones I have. Well, these are fairly long. Oh, wait. Shh. Here we go. You will do just fine, sir. So how far do I need to go for this one? I need to go down about this far. Okay, so I'm going to lock this one back into place. I'm going to get it on the grid here so that it's square. And then I can lock these in. Okay, and like I said, I just want one that's just going to hold it flat right here. And we should be in good shape. Just trying to minimize any movement. There we go. All right. I'm going to take this as my XY point right here. I'm going to readjust that on here. So I need to go back to my piece of wood and measure this again. And I need to actually get the depth of the wood as well. I didn't get that yet. So I need to enter that into this. So this is 10 1/4. So I'm going to go and change these dimensions on my setup here. So I just come over here. And this is 10.25 inches. Okay. And then the width, or the Y, is 6, I'm going to call it 6.5. It doesn't have to be exact because I'm working from this corner. So if it's a little extra up here, it doesn't matter. So we're just going to call it 6.5. Okay. And then my depth, I definitely need to have the depth right. So what I'm going to do is get my caliper here, and I'm going to use the little depth gauge on this. So I turn it on. I'm going to zero this out, and then I will take a depth measurement. Make sure it's right. And the depth on this is 0.3985. So I will add that in here as 0.3985, 0.3985. It will route 3985. It will round whatever it needs to. So it rounded it to 0.399, which is fine. And then what I will do is move this down to that corner. So I'm just going to grab this. If you look right here, you'll see this is actually where my outline is. I'm going to move that. I'm going to actually, I think I want to rotate the whole thing 90 degrees. Wonder if I can do that on here. Wonder if I can rotate that. Let's see here. So edit. Can I rotate? I mean, there's a little handle to rotate it, but I don't like doing that because it, you know what I can do? Hang on, watch this. I can flip this vertically. Doop, there we go. That works. And now I can drag this down towards that corner down there so that it's just gonna cut about that far and about that far. This doesn't need to be super exact. Okay, and I'm going to be using an 1/8 inch bit on here. Oh, that's the other thing too. I need to change the bit. So I'm going to go back up into here and change this to a 1/8 inch spiral cut bit. There we go. Because the type of bit goes into you do the type of bit and the type of wood. Actually, I need to change this from birch plywood back to maple and tiger flame maple. There we go. Because that automatically figures out and calculates the feed adjustments for how deep and how fast that bit needs to move and do the cut. So now that I have all that done, I can get rid of this and we can set this up for doing the actual cut. And to do that, let me see here. I'm going to go to the carve section. And it says, well, measure it 0.399 inches. That's correct. It's tiger maple. That's correct. So it wants me to confirm the thickness and the material. So I say that's done. Is it clamped down? Yep, not moving. So that's done. 1/8 inch upcut. I think it's an upcut spiral. But yes, that's done. And now I need to probe. So what I need to do is I need to jog the machine in place above where I'm going to be cutting, because I need to put my probe on here. And the probe will actually measure the surface of the wood from the bit. And that way the machine knows where it is in space. So I'm going to move this down to this area. And maybe over and then down one more. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is do a measurement. This is called a Z probe, and the machine knows exactly how thick this is. It knows exactly how thick this little puck right here is. It's a little brass. I don't know if it's brass. I don't know what it's made out of, but it conducts electricity. There is an electrode inserted into one end, or a little probe in one end. That comes up to a plug, which gets plugged into the system. Then I have a clip which actually goes onto my collet. So what happens is, as this thing lowers down, it's sending electricity through one wire, and as soon as it senses that it has connected with this bit, which completes the circuit, it says that's my bottom out area, and it goes. So watch, you can see. So I'm going to say probe, and it does a lot of things. So it confirms, okay, is it in the correct position over your material? Is it plugged in? It can sense that it's plugged in, so I don't need to do that. The clip is attached. Now what I have to do is I have to actually make contact so that it knows. So all I do is I raise the puck up to touch, and it'll sense the contact and go, okay, we're good. We've got a good connection. The touch plate is in place. And then I tell it to start probing. It's lowering that bit down very slowly until it contacts. Boop, and then it makes contact and it comes back up and it says, okay, you can take the probe out now. I know where I am in the Z-axis. Because that's what it's doing, is it's basically determining where the bottom of that bit is in the Z-axis. The Z is the up and down. X and Y go this way and this way, but the Z is up and down. And for a CNC machine, that's everything. So that's everything. All right, the rest of this that we need to do is basically set up the dust collection and the XYZ. So let me set this up first before we set the XY, because I need to raise this little holder up here. This is a Sucket dust boot. That's the name of the company that makes it. It's called Sucket. They actually make these entire fittings on a 3D printer, which is very cool. All right, so that is good. So I can now remove this for the moment, because I don't need to do anything else except I need to set my XY axis. So I'm going to move this over and find the very end point, this very corner of the wood right here, because that is going to be my XY home. That's my 0 point. Now I've got big movements going on here. I can change those to much smaller movements. So I can move it over now. Smaller movements, that's like 1/10 of an inch. And then the other thing is I can lower it and get it very close to the surface of the wood, which allows me to get more accurate. I'm going to raise it up just a hair. I can actually go by 1/100 of an inch. So I'm going to move this till I have it right on that corner. And that is on the corner, which is awesome. Now I'm going to raise that bit. So that is my XYZ axis. I'm going to go over here and say probe is away, set my XY 0 point, which we just did. So now it knows where it is in the Z space and it knows where it is in the XY axis. Now it can take all that and convert that into the proper path and depth for this to go. So I'm going to put this on, make sure these are tight, and then I'm going to attach the vacuum. Now the vacuum, because this hose is heavy, I don't want it to drag and move. So what I do is I usually mount this onto here. I just use a block of wood, and I take a clamp and clamp this down to the corner here. And that just kind of holds this in place like that. Sort of. It used to. I had a fence on here, and the fence isn't necessary, but it did actually hold this in place better. So, come on, hold together. There we go. Okay, so this is being held in place. It just keeps it up and out of the way, is all it's doing. I need to plug in the router that we use. This has a DeWalt router that it uses to make the cuts. So plug that in. And this is loud. You won't hear it because my noise canceling does a really good job, but all right. Let's step through the rest of it here. So we're going to do, it has a little question thing and just walks you right through it. So, is the dust shoe attached? Yes, it is. Confirm the spindle is on. It is. So I'm stepping away from the noise, so hopefully you can hear me. The process for cutting this is about 4 minutes. It is noisy. I got my ear protection on, the vacuum's running, the router is running. So it's a noisy thing. But to do this by hand and get the accuracy would be almost impossible. So anyway, I'm just gonna kick back and let it run here, enjoy, and we'll see what it looks like when we're done. right, and that is the end of it. Now, if you, it wants to know if I was happy with my cut. Are you happy? It gives me a little happy face or a sad face. Yes, thank you, I'm happy. Appreciate it. I'm gonna take this off of here, and I'm gonna move the whole gantry back out of the way, which is the word I was looking for earlier. It's the gantry. I'm gonna move the gantry out of the way, and then I can actually pull this back up. So I'm gonna put this on one. Let me actually raise this out of the way, and then we will go back out of the way with it. There we go. All right. So when I was doing this design, and I don't know if you can see, let me click on the actual design here and show you. So I don't know if you can see these or not, but these little tabs, it puts tabs in here, which means it does the cut all the way around, but then it doesn't complete the cut in these little areas right here. So those little tabs hold it in place, because if you cut all the way through at some point in time, you'd cut through the wood and then this would move and then it would ruin the cut. So those tabs keep it held in place, and then you can go through and use like a little saw or something to get them off of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on this piece of wood here so that I know where the corner is, so I can place this back down. And I'm going to peel this off of here like that. So that's pretty nice, right? That came out pretty well. Let's go back over here and let's look at what we got. So here's the cut. See if it's a little easier to see here. So you can see the cut. Now it did not, it's easier to see the tabs on the back. So you can see right here, tab, 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 tab. So those areas, I mean, they're really thin. They're like maybe a 32nd thick. They're less than a 16th. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tape off of here now, just because it gets sticky and hard to work around. But I mean, it does such a great job. And you notice that, I mean, I was able to pull it up off of there. I didn't use so much that it was just locked down onto that piece of plywood, but enough that it allowed me to easily pop it up. So we'll take all this scrap and throw it away in a handy dandy garbage can. Now I've got these tabs that I have to do something with. I could try to break it out of here. The other thing I can do is just go over here and get my little saw. So I get my little flush cut trim saw and just kind of cut these out, these little tabs. They're going to have to be cleaned up anyway, so it doesn't have to be pretty. Usually doesn't take a lot of force to cut through them. There we go, there's that one, this one. And like I said, they don't take a lot. They're just there to hold the piece of wood. And actually this one's probably going to break. There we go. So there's the cutout. And here is our piece. You can see those little tabs are attached. Those are easily cleaned up with a chisel or even just like some light sandpaper. Just cleans that right up, just like that. So I can just sand these up. Because the next thing we want to do is test fit these in our bases. But I mean, this is like so easy compared to doing all these by hand. And the next thing we're going to do with these things is we will flatten them and get them to the right thickness. But that's easier to do once we have done this part. So let me grab one of the bases right over here. And we will need our test machine, our model. But this is going to fit right there, which it does. Now, some of them are a little tighter than others just because these are not all exactly super good. Let me try this one right here. So that's a little bit tighter than the other one, but still very good. So yeah, we're in good shape here. I mean, too tight isn't really an issue. I mean, they're not going to be super tight. They're just a little tight. So let's grab our machine here. We'll put that in here. Like this is how it will sit. We will close the lid, and there we go. Now this is I'm going to have to lose about half the thickness on here. If I get my my pencil, where's my pencil? My ever-wandering pencil. I just want to make a mark on here and see. There's a pencil. I want to see about how much thickness I have to lose here. So I can just make a mark on here. And then we can go and look and see. So here is down here, if this is the bottom surface, you can see all of this up here, across the top, and on this side. All of that thickness needs to be removed. And I will probably end up doing that on the jointer and then by hand. But that's one done. So very cool. Very easily done using the CNC machine, which is, when I can use it, it's such a super time saver. Now I can take that piece that we just had, let me set this down out of the way. So that piece we just had, that we just cut out of, still has a usable piece right here. And we are going to take that piece and we will cut another one of these out. Now I have to be careful not to put it in the same spot. So I'm going to need to measure how far over this goes from the edge. But that is certainly a usable piece of wood. Now, also it needs to set this way. So if I flip it corner-wise, actually, I think I can use the exact same measurement. I might move it down just a hair. But yeah. All right, let's, I'm gonna do this. Actually, I'm gonna move this out of the way because it's easier to do it on a flat surface. So I'm gonna figure out where I can put my tape first of all. So I'm gonna just set this down. I know that this is gonna be cutting right here, right about here. And I'm just gonna kind of just draw that here so I know where the edge is. And I can put some tape around it. So it's gonna be right here. So I'm gonna put a piece of tape right in the middle because I know that's where the, that's where we want it to really hold down right there to the surface. So we'll put a piece of tape right here. And then I can put a piece of tape over here, a piece of tape over here, and that should be enough to just hold this in place. I don't think we'll have any other issues with this moving. So put a piece right here. I probably had more tape than I needed on that last one, but rather too much than not enough. Because the last thing you want is your piece to shift in the middle of a cut. That never ends well. Ever, ever, ever. Never, ever does that end well. Okay. Let's get my, my knife here. Let's do this. Just take the little backing paper off. I will look to see if I can find a link to buying this stuff and put it in the description for you all. So if you want to go back and check later, I will hopefully have that hooked up for you. Because like I said, this is the best tape I have used. I've tried I have a lot of different double-sided tapes. This is the best stuff I have used to date. And it's really, like I said, it's IPG, Intertape Polymer Group. You can find them at www.itape.com. And this is just the white double-sided tape. So I think this is like maybe an inch or just a hair under an inch wide. All right, let's go stick this over here. I'm gonna go back to this camera and we're gonna stick this down. Let me get a sandpaper here and just flatten this out from where the last cuts were. Because we don't want that to interfere with this getting stuck down. And I'm just going to kind of make sure all the dust is off of there. And I'm going to use those marks that we made so that this is in the exact same position. So planning ahead. Every now and then I do that. Not always, but sometimes I'm smart and do things the way I should. All right, tape here, tape here, tape here. Putting firm pressure on there. And that is not moving at all. Okay, we'll go through the same process now to cut this out. We will basically move this gantry back. We will do a Z. We will do an X, Y, 0, and 4 minutes later we'll have another lid. So let me move this back. Oh, I got to put it into the, let's go into the carve position here. And I can go ahead and move everything back now. Now this might not, actually let me check the thickness on this because it's probably not going to be the same thickness as the last one we did, just due to the fact that I cut it on the bandsaw, and I doubt my resawing was that accurate. So I'm just going to get a measurement of the thickness here. So this one is 0.4035. Let me just check that again. So maybe not. Make sure I'm zeroed. So nope, 0.393. Let's check it over here. See over here, it says 0.35. So it's a little thicker on this edge. I'm just going to call this 0.405. We're going to go with that. So I'm going to change this thickness to 0.405. And if it cuts a little deeper than that, that's okay. 0.405 is my new thickness. And material is secure. Definitely an up bit. Now we're going to move this in place so that we can do our probe. The other thing is this is all rough cut over here, so it's going to be deeper in some areas and not as deep in others. So I'd rather go a little deep. So right here, I want to get it to about where the middle of that is going to be. What are we at? 1230 here. Okay. Right about there. That's where I want the Z probe to be. And let me grab the probe out of the drawer here. And we'll put that back in place. So I'm going to put the puck down in the wood. We'll hook up the clip, plug it in, and then go through the process. Now you can manually set the depth, and it's like you have to keep lowering it down, use a piece of paper under the bit until it just drags the piece of paper, but doesn't. It's, yeah, it's horrible. This Z probe is such a time saver. I don't know how people function without it. Okay, then make contact. Okay, so it establishes a good spot, touch plates in place. Let's start probing. And I had the probe up, I had the bit up a little high there. So, all right, let me put this back in the drawer just to get it out of the way. And now we can set our XY axis to a 0. I know. This is why it has options to use like 1 inch and then 1/10 of an inch, because doing little stuff like this is, sometimes if you got a long way to go, you don't want to use those little teeny ones. All right. That is pretty good, and that is pretty good. We'll call that 0 right there. Okay, so let's set my XY. It's done. I'm going to raise this back up just to get it out of the way so I can put the dust shoe on right here. And then we will put the hose in. And then I will turn on my fan or my dust collection and the router and let this one rip. I can get it. All right, that worked out pretty well, I think. Let me do a little housekeeping here, and yeah, that was pretty quick. Good grief! I'm not going to spend. Well, maybe spend that much. I'm doing. Pardon me for doing a little housekeeping here. Is it not? Yes, it is. So we can move this back, and we can. Oh, smiley face because we're happy with it. Thank you. I'll go back here to the move controls. I'm going to raise it up. Go to 1 inch. And then raise it 1 inch. Just clears it out of the way of the dust boot for the most part. I can get the dust boot out of the way, and then I can make it go backwards. There we go. And then that gives us enough room to basically pop this thing out of here. Well, look at that, it just broke right off there. And oh, this one off. Whoop, there we go. Yeah, so that worked out. You can see I didn't leave a lot of room for not a lot of room for error there on my cutout, right? It was pretty close, but it worked out really well. So that is super. What is this thing doing? Choose this and this. Okay, hang on. I'm trying to wrap up some stuff here, and not a 30, 3070. Okay. Is that a 30? Yeah, okay. Enter. Confirm. Okay. Take my ears off and set my phone down out of the way. That's 2 of them done. So we've got 2 cut, and we can, let's take a little longer. Basically, because I had to resaw this wood, it just took a little bit more time than I was anticipating for this process. But then again, you know, that's just part of the process. The project dictates how much time it takes for me to do these things, not my desire to do it in an amount of time. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to allow 1 hour to do this. And that's about the time that you get bit in the butt, because your project says, oh, heck no. You will take 2 hours to do that, maybe 3. So, Mr. Smarty Pants, Mr. I've got it all covered. So I kind of guesstimate how long it takes me to do things, but you know, if I'm ahead of schedule or faster than I think, that's awesome, but never do I just assume that I've got a handle on the amount of time it's going to take me. So, all right, and like I said, I just kind of clean this edge up. These are very rough cut on this side right here, so these are definitely going to get flattened down. I'm just cleaning up some of the cut marks here, and it should be the exact same size as the other one that I just did right here. So if I back to back these things, they are exactly the same size, so no worries about them fitting or not fitting. I was really close on that one though. I mean, that overlap was pretty much perfect. So that's a good use of wood right there. That is not a lot left for the scrap pile, and I like that. Maximize my wood, maximize my profits. All right, 1, 2, I need 1 more. I've got 3 of these things. This one would be really easy. I've got it already set up here. So I'll tell you what, let me, I'm actually gonna use it on this side. I'll flip this over. So I'm just gonna draw this really quick so I know where to put my tape. I'm gonna put some tape on here, and we're gonna cut this one out really quick. It's only 4 minutes to do. And like I said, when you get, that's the nice thing about the CNC is once you get it set up, it's pretty much automatic. I mean, it just goes to town. And you just, it's like the employee that doesn't complain, just does his thing, right? And I just let my employee do their thing. So put this piece of tape right here, and then I'm gonna tape around the edges just to make sure that it holds it down. So one right here. Now, the nice thing is this wood is the exact same dimension, outer dimension, as that other piece that we just used. So my little marks that I've got on my bench over there will still be accurate. And so I will put this in the same spot on my wasteboard and not have to measure anything out. We can just do the probe and do the XY, and we will be ready to roll. Now, there is a setting that you can use the same XY axis, but I don't trust it. I would rather just manually say, this is my XY. It doesn't take very long, and then I'm good to go. So once again, this is pretty much done. Now, like I said, I need to measure, clean all that dust off of here so the tape will stick. I need to measure the thickness of this with my calipers, which are sitting over here. And I'm going to zero these out and measure how thick this is. So this one, a little thicker, 0.421. So we will enter that into my thickness now, my new thickness here. So we're going to come back into here and we're going to say this is 0.421. There we go. Now we'll set this back in place. Make sure I've got it in the right spot so that I'm not running that bit over tape. That's pretty close right there. And I just put the pressure on there just to keep this from moving. And that is really secure right there. Love that. Now we can just move this back in place. So I'm going to go back to here now, go back to my carve again, and we'll just start this whole thing over again. So confirm that. Yes. Confirm that. Confirm that. We're going to move this back into place. So let's do, you can do this from the keyboard or you can do it from the control panel here. Now I need to make sure that I'm Z probing in a spot where this is going to get cut. That's usually, you know, you don't want it to probe in an area that's not going to be carved, because if your wood is a different thickness there, it will not be super accurate. So this should be the right spot right there. We'll put this clip on, we will attach this. Like I said, setup on this thing, once you get things established, setup is so super fast. Okay, I'm gonna go to the probe. You're not even watching this, are you? Golly, how rude of me. Sorry about that. How rude of me. There we go. My apologies. Confirm, clip is attached. We're gonna touch for contact. Touch plates in place. We're going to start probing. They don't leave a lot to chance. It's like they kind of walk you through this every single time. You're like, well, I've done it before, but you know what? It doesn't care. It's like, you know what? We're going to walk you through that entire process. So there's no chance you're going to mess it up. All right. Now I'm going to move this back over. Now this should be in a pretty good approximate location from the last one. And it is, so my Z location is good. I'm going to raise this back up. I'm going to say the probe is away. Set my XY axis because I just looked at it and it's good. We're going to put this back on. Grab my ears, turn everything on, and off to the races we go. That is so incredibly fast. There are, realistically, there are other ways I could do this. After having made that one from the prototype, I could use that as a template, smiley face. I could use that as a template, and then I could, let me do this. I have to make sure that I do this in the right direction, because if I push the bit down into the wood instead of up away from the wood, that would turn out badly. All right, and then we're just going to go back. That's the last one I'm doing anyway. I love the noise it makes. Yeah, so I could have used that first one I did as a template, and I could have then cut these pieces, rough cut to, I'm going to turn this off. I could have rough cut this wood to the size. Now this, okay, let me show you this. It did not cut all the way through, so my wood thickness changed. Now, I'm guessing this is super thin right here, but my wood thickness did change. I can feel it. It's super thin. But that's why you got to measure that wood thickness and such. I think I could probably do this with this knife. But anyway, like I said, if I use that one as a template, right? If I use it as a template, if I cut the wood a little oversized, then I could double stick tape the wood to my template, take it over to my router table over there, it's over there, and then use a flush trim bit or a pattern bit, if you will, to basically follow along. This is such a more elegant and easy solution. There we go, just kind of cutting through that thin wood there. And right there, right here, somewhere over here. Let's do this one right here. That's my little notch. Now it's a little bit thicker right here. Let me find out where this is going here. I'm going to get my saw here, and we're just going to kind of come up through here a little bit to the edge of that. I don't want to cut into it. I think this is thick enough that let me get all the way through all this. I got to cut these other notches here. That one's done. Get this one cut. And then this one should be cut. So this little piece of wood right here, there we go. Just pop it out. Just pop it out. And this is all going to get flattened anyway. So even though it tipped just a tiny bit, it's still good. All right, there we go. Number 3 done. And like I said, that was apparently where I measured the wood was not the thickest part of the wood. So you always want to measure the thickest part of the wood so that your blade will penetrate, or your bit will penetrate all the way through to the end. Or you'll have to do what I did, which is kind of help it a little bit. I'm going to take the rest of this off of here. There's still a nice usable piece of figured maple right here. So I don't know that I will use it for anything, but I might. And so I'm going to hold on to it because it's figured maple, and doggone, that stuff is just gorgeous. All right, 1, 2, sandpaper. Just the rough sandpaper. I think I have a heavier grit behind me over here. Yeah, this is a little bit more grit to it here, so I can get these cleaned off. It doesn't take too much to get that down. Get these little tabs cleaned off, and that extra wood I had there. There we go. And a tab right here. Get this one cleaned up. There we go. There's a little extra right in here. So this one had a little extra cleaning to do here, but that's, I mean, it's super thin. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for me to clean this out, either with a chisel or, like I said, just with sandpaper. So Yeah, there we go. Got to just get this little one. You know, this is kind of bugging me. Hang on a second. Let me grab a chisel. It's bugging me. I don't like it when they bug me. We're going to get a chisel here, and we're just going to, I'm just going to give it a little tap on the edge here to get that edge cleaned up. And we're just going to slowly work this right there. That should clean off these little pieces there. And then this piece right here, I got to be careful with this. But if I come in here and just slowly kind of pare this away, that is probably going to do the job just perfect. You know, the big thing is don't be in a hurry. That's when bad things happen. Just take your time. Little pieces coming off are better than no pieces. And certainly better than more than you planned. So there we go. That is perfect. Now I can clean this up. It is windy as all get out outside. We had a little front come through last night. I tell you, the weather has been just wackadoodle lately. It's a technical term for crazy. It went from Monday was 65 for a high. Tuesday was 83 for a high. Wednesday was 85. Yesterday was 86. Today is 65. It's just nuts. All right, 1, 2, 3. We have 3 lids. So we are so far ahead of the game now. That is awesome. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave things for today. That was, like I said, I thought I maybe be able to get to the bottoms, but that's not a big deal. I have wood set aside for that, the plywood. It's a matter of cutting it and rounding the corners. That's an easy fix. But these took a little bit more work than I thought it would. And we had to change course once when we went from maybe using this piece of wood right here to this larger piece. I'm really glad I went to this. I say that now. We'll see when I get them, if I can get them flattened down to the appropriate size. But I think that will work. And I think that this is going to be a much better option for us if I don't break them in the meantime. But I think this is going to be a much better option moving forward. So I think that was a good decision. And yeah, these things have been sitting around the shop for months now. I mean, I got them to that certain point and I was just like, oh, and I've got so many other things. So I just kind of set them off to the side. But now we're really close to being finished. I'm going to put the bottoms in, get these things flattened, and then it's a matter of just finishing them. You know, just doing some roundovers, some sanding, and then figuring out, because this is flame maple, I want to see, oh, it's so pretty. I want to see what finish will look best on these. It's I don't know if you can see the flaminess on here. It is so good. There's such a really nice flame in this thing. And the right finish will just accentuate that and make it pop. The wrong finish and it'll just kind of not look like anything. I may do some shellac on here. Shellac with flame maple can do some really nice things. And what you really want is you want what's called the chatoyance, which is the reflectivity in the wood grain. When you move it and you can see it kind of shimmers and moves, that's called chatoyance. And I really want the chatoyance of these to pop because I mean, you know, people have these and set out and I want them to look really beautiful. I mean, I could make a box out of pine and it would be useful. I'm making it out of flame maple. I want it to be gorgeous. And hey, it doesn't hurt the price tag either, you know what I mean? So, just saying. Anyway, I will figure that out. Actually, you know, I actually have some piece of scrap wood here. I might actually save this piece of wood right here and do some finish testing on here. And we might figure out from this piece of wood what we're going to do finish-wise to get that flaminess to pop. But we're not going to do that today. Today I am done. It is Friday. It is time for lunch and other such activities. So I'm going to do a wrap up here. I'm not going to be on my bike today because dang, it's windy. Anyway, you have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family, your friends. Wear your mask. Get your shots. Be healthy. Be safe. All right. I'm out of here. I'll be back Monday at 11 o'clock. So come back and join me, will you? All right. Take care. If I can find the right button. It's right here.